Why does burnout happen? And what can you do to avoid it? Welcome to the Bridge to Joy, soul-led inspiration for the real world. I'm Sonia Davies, spiritual advisor, and I'm here to share with you thoughts, ideas, and inspiration to help you find your joy. Welcome. If you are new here, it's wonderful to meet you. Please do subscribe to my channel. I would love you to do that. And if you've been here for a while, thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. So this episode, we are going to be talking about burnout. Now, it's one of those messy, complicated subjects, and there are a lot of layers to it. And I'm going to help you break it down into component parts so that you can avoid that feeling of burnout. Let's start with, what is burnout anyway? Well, it's both very simple and very complex at the same time. That's one of the challenges with burnout. Burnout happens when you feel like you literally can't do anything. You stop being able to function. You can't even face the world. Normal activity becomes too much. And yes, I am talking from first-hand experience here. I have had several cycles of burnout in my life until the last one, which was at the time of recording this about 3.5, 4 years ago. Where I was still in my corporate job at that point, and I ended up needing 5 months off work. It was not a nice experience. I couldn't function. I couldn't think straight. My brain just stopped working. Now, burnout shows up in different people in different ways. Now, I am not saying that my experience is universal and that's how it shows up for everyone. For some people, it's physical illness. Physical illness, long-term health conditions, things like that are a form of burnout, can be a form of burnout. Underneath it all, I said this is simple and complex at the same time. The complexity is the way that it shows up for you. And the reality is that those are symptoms. They're not the cause of burnout. The simple part of this is why it happens at all. I believe fundamentally burnout happens as a form of course correction. Burnout happens because you are not living the life that you are meant to be living. In some way, you are squashing yourself to fit a version of existence that has been conditioned into you. And we're going to dive into that. And I'm going to talk about lots of different ways that that can happen for you and things that you can do to try and mitigate that. My own story is that my last episode of burnout happened when I was working in a big corporate job, and go back and watch episode 1 of The Bridge to Joy, because that's where I share my origin story and I share a lot more detail about this. But in headline, for context for this episode, basically, I was working a very busy, hectic senior leadership job, but I was also a carer for my mum, and I had various financial pressures, certain responsibilities I'd taken on board, all sorts of other things going on. It wasn't just about the job. But when I stepped back, I realized, and this is a hindsight thing afterwards, I realized all of those things happened because I was squashing myself into a version of me that I believed people wanted. I was squashing myself to fit what I thought were other people's expectations, and that is what caused my burnout. That was the root of it all. I stopped believing that I was important. Now, your story may be different, and that's okay, but I'm giving you an example. I'm going to pepper this episode with my own examples to so that you have a context to work with, but my example will not be yours because you are unique and I am unique, and that's the beauty of being human, is that we are all unique. But the principles underneath this are the same for all of us. So, I fundamentally believe that as a human, you come into this life, into this incarnation with a soul contract, or a series of soul contracts for different things and different layers of your life. And in order to fulfill those soul contracts, there are certain things you need to do, certain things you need to experience, certain things you need to heal, because we've been going through a cycle of karmic cycles and trauma from previous lifetimes, from previous soul experiences, both human and non-human. And we come into this incarnation with a purpose. And I'm going to say 95% of people come in by choice. Okay, your soul chose to be here. If you're in the 5%, drop me a message, have have a conversation with me, because that's an awkward place to be, and actually I'm part of that 5% myself, but I'm not going to talk about this for this episode. That's a completely different conversation. But 95% of souls are here because you've chosen to be here. So I'm going to assume that's who I'm talking to right now. Your soul came into this lifetime for a number of reasons. There were things you wanted to learn. There were things you wanted to heal. There were things you wanted to experience. And you had a purpose and a mission. Now, we are all divine, infinite beings. We are part of the oneness of all that is. And we are also an individual human being having human experience. And that brings in multiple layers of complexity. Now, bear with me a little while I try and explain this, because it's a big concept and yet it's the fundamental truth of everything, in my opinion. And you're here because you're listening to my opinion. So let's go with that, okay? I believe that we're all here because we've agreed to certain things in this lifetime. And what happens is, from the moment we join our physical body in the womb, and that will happen at different stages of gestation. I believe we all choose the moment that we come into our physical body, but it is before birth. So we then experience birth, in whatever way that happened for you. And then we go through life. And the moment we are born, as a human, our physical brains are not designed to be able to think rationally, to look after ourselves, to care for ourselves for the first 7 years or so of life. Which means that everything that happened to you in the first 7 years of life were dictated by conditions, rules, and experiences that the grown-ups around you brought to you. Now, some of those, and I'm saying grown-ups because they may be birth parents, they may be not, but also any other adult around you, to be honest with you. Parents of friends of yours, school teachers, aunts and uncles, grandparents, maybe religious figures, vicars or ministers or whatever, important adults in your life. It's not just biological parents. That's why I talk about grown-ups. People who were there to look out for you, or in some cases not, let's be honest, that happens as well. And the grown-ups around you. Now, I'm talking about the physiology of the human brain here, not your personal life experiences. But your brain, as a before you are about 8 years old, is conditioned, is programmed, is hardwired to listen to and believe the grown-ups around you. It's survival, okay? Because we gestate for a period of 9 months, give or take, and I'm talking generically here, of course. Obviously, there are nuances to this, but we gestate for 9 months in the womb, then we are born, and then we have our first 7 years or so of life. We are dependent on the grown-ups around us for survival. In the first few months, that's literally food, water, everything. Okay. We are utterly dependent on the grown-ups around us. And what that does, because your human brain is not actually evolved enough in those first 7 years of life to develop critical thinking, logical processes, thought patterns, and ways of seeing through and going, hang on, I don't agree with you. You disagree. Yes, absolutely, you do. And as children, you push boundaries and you find out how things work. But it's done from a place of, I'm trying to find out how to navigate this world. It's not done from a place of, no, I've formed my own thought pattern and I fundamentally disagree with you. That's the human part of your brain. However, there is also the spiritual you, that soul you, who came into that body, who knows things and who does disagree with the things around you. Now, in your human form, you are taught over those first 7 years how the world works, and that's designed to keep you safe. And you are preconditioned to believe the things that you are told, that you are taught, the rules that you are given to navigate the world. The grown-ups around you say, this is how the world works. And because you are dependent on them for survival, you believe them. However, your soul comes into your body, like I say, at some point in the period between gestation and between conception and birth. And it varies. I believe it varies, and each soul chooses the moment to come in that is perfect for you. And through the period of the first 7 years of life, the conditioning that happens in your human self actually overlays the soul self. Your soul self comes here knowing everything is possible and that you are an infinite being. And the human brain gradually places layers and layers and layers over the top of that, so that you can fit in and belong initially, so you can feel safe, so you can survive as a human, and you learn the rules to fit in with that. As I think about a baby, if I cry when I am hungry, I will receive food. Like I say, I'm talking generically here, not specifics. I hope that was true for you, and I am aware that that's not true for everyone. But generically, that's how it happens. If you feel fear, you cry, you are comforted. If you have something that is wrong, you cry as a baby. Something happens to the grown-ups around you, then navigate how they provide your needs, and that's survival for you as a baby. And as you grow into a child and you start to navigate, and things like you navigate friends, making friends, and going to school, and all of those things that happen in those first 7 years of life, there's an awful lot happens in those first 7 years. And all of those experiences place a layer over your soul self. The innocence of children is talked about. Children ask the impossible questions. Well, why is that like that? Why? They don't filter. And actually, that's because as a soul self, we don't filter because we know things are as they are. We see the ludicrousness of some of the rules that we put in place. And we go, what? Why would you do that? And we go, no, I don't want to fit into that. And sometimes we fight it, and sometimes we suppress it. And all of the lessons we are taught in that phase of life teach us, deeply condition us how to navigate the world around us. And then we spend the rest of our lives layering more on top and then eventually go into a place where, hang on, stop. That's where burnout happens. I'll come back to that. Let's talk about the process a bit more first. So basically, the rules that the grown-ups around you taught you when you were small become, this is how I need to navigate the world. If I upset someone, they cry, or I get shouted at, or whatever it is, I receive some implication for my actions, and I start to learn that my actions have consequences, good or bad. Now, this isn't about what's right or wrong. This is about the process. So, for example, I grew up in the middle of a city in England, Sheffield in England. We were fairly, it was a busy, busy place. And I was taught anytime I started to run out into the road as a small child, once I was running around, and I was quite young and I did that, I was very active. I got told, no, stop. And there was almost a fear jerking reaction to me going, oh, now that was survival. That was my parents not wanting me to run out into a busy city centre street where there was lots of traffic and things that, I could be hurt, I could be damaged by that. And my parents conditioned me and trained me to stop, when I was really small, to hold my mum or my dad's hand and look for traffic. We look for traffic. You look to the other people and you learn to listen. And I grew up with, we had the Green Cross Code, and I don't know, I'm of a certain age, and we had lots of, I've got memories flowing through now of, the Green Cross Code man and all of that. You may be young enough not to remember that, but I grew up in the 70s, and we had that here in England, and yeah, that was like stop, look, listen, and check for traffic before you cross the road, and always check to see if it's safe. And that was a rule that I grew up with. Now, I'm not going to lie, I live in a city again now. I haven't always lived in a city, and it's a different one now, but I live in a city now. And yeah, I still check for traffic before I run out into a main road. That is survival, and that's still relevant whether I'm 3 years old or 10 times that, whatever, more than that. Let's not go into that. The reality is some of those rules are really, really useful. And some of them are not. Some of them are rules like be quiet. Be a good girl. If you're quiet, you'll be a good girl or good boy. This is not gender specific, by the way. Think of other people before yourself. Be considerate to others. Don't be selfish. Don't be greedy. Serve other people before you take for yourself. That was a big one that I had. Really big one that I had. My bag of sweets story. When I started, I don't know, 4 or 5, I started school, infant school, and I was taught we are back in the 70s here, and you used to have bags of sweets in school was a thing. And I was taught, if you have a bag of sweets in the playground, offer them out to your friends first before you take one for yourself. It's polite, it's considerate, it's being nice to people. The meaning I took from that as a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, however old it was everyone else matters more than you. And that shaped my whole life until I burnt out and I saw it and I went, oh my God. That shaped everything in my life. The choices I made put other people first. And it came from being taught as a 4 or 5-year-old, offer other people what you've got first before you take one for yourself. Put other people first. So many people have this conditioning. It's called people pleasing in grown-up terms. Look after other people first. Because if you look after yourself first, you're selfish. You were taught that, right? You were taught that being selfish was bad. That means you sacrifice yourself. You sacrifice your own needs for the benefit of everyone around you. And look what happens. That's what happened to me. That was certainly my story. Now, there are other versions of that I will come on to in a moment. I'm going back to my own story, making this relevant for you. My own story was that when I had my last episode of burnout, the big one, 5 months off work one, that changed my whole life, I was putting everyone else first. I actually did a little exercise that I'd learned in previous rounds of doing CBT. And I did an exercise and I sat down at my desk right here where I am now, with 2 pieces of paper. And on the first piece of paper, I wrote down everything that's important to me in my life. And on the second piece of paper, I wrote down everything that I spend my time on. And on the everything I spend my time on and put my energy into, I did not appear on that list. I was looking after my job. I was looking after the people that I was working for. I was working in adult social care. So the people that I was there to serve. I was looking after my husband. I was looking after my mum. I was looking after all sorts of other complicated things going on in my life at the time. And my own needs were not on that list anywhere. And yet on the list of things that were important to me, my own health, my own exercise and fitness mattered to me, being able to go for walks in nature, getting out and doing things that I enjoyed. They were on my list of things that were important to me, but they were not on the list of things that I was spending my time on. I ignored me for the benefit of everyone else because I was scared that if I put my needs first, I would be being selfish, and that's not okay. That bag of sweets, offer my sweets to everyone else first before I take one for myself. Make sure everyone else is looked after first before I look after me. That's what led to my burnout. I forgot about me. That's classic chronic people pleasing. Make everyone else happy. And it happens because as children, we bend ourselves to fit in. When we keep other people happy, we don't have negative consequences, or we do have positive consequences. And that comes from the first 7 years of life, when the grown-ups around us praise us for keeping quiet instead of shouting, or for sitting still instead of running around like we want to, for sharing our toys with our friends instead of playing with them ourselves. It doesn't matter what it is. When you're praised for doing things that shrink you, you learn that. It becomes conditioning. And until you bring it out and look at it, that influences you. Carl Jung says that. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. Now, I believed that I was doing the right thing in serving everyone else in my job, in my life, before I hit the burnout. Genuinely believed it because it was so unconscious within me. And I brought it out into the consciousness. The act of burning out made me bring it out into the consciousness and look at it and go, that's not how I want my life to work anymore. The irony of that one, just to finish this story, is that when I started putting myself first, everyone around me benefited more because they were getting a version of me that had the energy to help them, rather than the version of me that was running on empty and was giving them scraps. I could actually give people more now. Now I put myself first. It's one of those great ironies. We don't get taught that as children. Now, other ones that come through, that was my story, that was my narrative. But there are many, many other versions of this. Things like perfectionism. You've got to do it right. If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. What? Where did that one come from? That brings perfectionism, which means nothing is ever good enough. And so you hold yourself to a standard that is actually impossible to reach. When you realize the perfection is being you. You are already perfect, exactly as you are. You are a perfect soul having a human experience. There is nothing to perfect. There is nothing needed to make things better within you. All there is ways that you hold yourself to account that are unrealistic expectations, which then stop you from thriving. And that's what leads to burnout. Now, there are many other examples, and I would be here talking all day if I gave you all of them. But the principle underneath all of this is that as children, we are conditioned with rules. This is how the world works. There's another really big one that I will mention briefly, which is that in order to be successful, you have to follow these rules. Go to school, possibly go to university, education system, then job, make lots of money, have the luxury holidays because you've made lots of money, and then retire. That's the story that's been sold to every one of us. And it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. That is deep societal conditioning. And it's not your family's fault. That has been so ingrained in society for so long that it ripples through generations. So this is not about, none of these things are about you going and starting to, I don't know, blame your parents for things that have gone wrong in your life. This is not what this is about. This is about you as an adult now going, okay, I needed those rules to stay safe when I was a child, but I've never sat and rethought them. And as you become an adult, you just go through and go, well, that's what it is. And then you get to the point where you're watching this now because you're questioning things, because you don't want to keep going in the same way, in the same format forever. And I'm saying the fact that you're here and you're watching this means that you are ready to go. I want to bring some of those things out into the open and redecide them. This is not about blaming anyone, including yourself, for believing the things that you were taught to believe. This is about going, okay, that's kept me safe. Brilliant. Let's take it out and look at it. Thank you for keeping me safe. I'm going to put you down now because I don't choose you anymore. I'm choosing this instead. This is about making conscious choices. To do that is not always easy. Now, I'm not going to lie, my journey to joy has not been simple, and it's been multi-layered, and it continues daily. I fundamentally feel joyful in my life all the time. And just to say briefly, joy is not the same as happiness. That doesn't mean I'm permanently happy. I have moments where I'm really, really not happy. I have moments where I'm really grumpy or really miserable. I sit and cry on my sofa there and just go, ah. Joy doesn't mean permanently happy and smiley. I mean, I am today, and that's great. But joy means underneath it all, that fundamental core knowledge that everything is okay. And that even in those moments where things are difficult and things are bad and things feel horrible and icky and sit with the emotion, let it flow, and you know with joy underneath it, fundamentally you will come back to that place of joy, and you just let that emotion flow, whatever it is, flow through you, let yourself feel it, and right, and then I'm going to come back to feeling joyful again, actually feeling happy again. I've been doing that myself. Absolutely do that. Fundamentally, burnout happens because you don't allow yourself to feel deep joy. And some of that is conditioning. It's from society. If you think about, if you were raised in some religious doctrines, not all by any stretch of the imagination, I'm not here to bash religion at all, but some of the narratives that have been used by some religions along the way are, you are fundamentally bad and deserve to be punished, and therefore you have to spend your life doing good things to make up for the fact that you're fundamentally bad. I don't buy that. I do not agree with that at all. However, that ripples through societally, whether you are involved in that religion or not, any religion or not. Like I say, this is not about belief systems. This is about the narratives that ripple through society. Think about your grandparents, your great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, the lives that they had were often about keep your head down. Don't show yourself above the parapet, because if you stand out, that's bad. You don't want to be bad. You want to be good. You want to be rewarded for being good, and good behavior means conforming. You're a unique individual. I say don't conform. Now, there's a balance to be had here. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for forging your own path. Some rules in society exist because they are for the benefit of all. And some rules exist because they keep society suppressed. I'm inviting you to use your discernment over which rules are which. I'm not here to say, ignore that one and do that one. That's not what this is about. That's not what I'm about. I will never tell you what you should do. I am here to activate you and help you work out what works for you, because your unique experiences are very different to mine. I've shared some of my story here, but yours will be different. And that's what it's about. It's meant to be different. You are a unique soul having a unique experience. If we move beyond the human form of you now back to your soul self, we'll come back to the human in a moment. Your soul is trying to talk to you. It's trying to communicate with you. Your soul came into this life. If you remember earlier on, I mentioned, you come in with soul contracts. You come in agreeing to be here because you've chosen to be here, because there are things you want to do, things you want to achieve, things you want to experience. And I fundamentally believe that burnout happens because you squash those layers of your soul and stop them having the experiences that actually you're here for. And burnout happens when your soul goes, I can't do this anymore. Please stop. And it comes along and it smacks you around the face and goes, will you pay attention? You're not listening. And how you resolve that is by learning to listen to your soul. Connect in with your soul's truth. That's the way to avoid burnout. Because when you listen to your soul's truth, you start to connect with what really matters to you rather than what you've been trained to believe matters based on other people's expectations and rules. And that's the key. When you decide for yourself based on what's true for you in your heart, not in here. This is very much not in the logical brain. This is about your feelings. This is about your sense of self. This is about your connection to your higher soul self. This is about allowing yourself to have the space and freedom to be you, to be the version of you that you're here to be. When you start connecting with that, and it's an eternal journey, and it never stops. And I uncover more layers every single day. However, I had something come up for me literally yesterday, and I was like, whoa, what? I'm diving into learning some astrology at the moment. I am not an astrologer. I would love to be an astrologer, but I'm a long way off that. But I'm a very enthusiastic amateur, and I am learning more and more about myself through astrology. But it's not the astrology is the map, and for me, it's giving me a framework to look at things and unlocking things in me. And I go, oh, wow, that's something I can get hold of. That's some potential within me. And I'm like, mind blown. Wow, that's amazing. Right. And now how do I tap into that and connect with that and make sense of it and turn it into this 3D human experience that I'm having? It's powerful stuff, and it's multi-layered and multi-dimensional as well. But if I was still in my people-pleasing phase, living my life because this is what's expected of me, measuring by my parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and society's standards of what's acceptable and what's not, and bearing in mind we've had a massive generational shift over the last 2 generations, our own and our parents, huge generational shift. Since the Second World War, basically, certainly through the 60s, so much changed and beyond, and it continues to change at a faster and faster rate. We are questioning some of those rules and those conditionings that exist within our generational ancestry. And the more we are able to release the human brain conditioning, the more we're able to connect with our soul self mission and purpose and understand ourselves more deeply and on a multiple dimensional layer. And then we work out how to apply it in our day-to-day lives. It's complex and yet it's simple, because the reality is the pathway to deep joy within yourself is being more connected to your soul self and stopping your brain getting in the way of it. And there is a third layer to this, which I'll just throw in. And making sure your physical body, your nervous system can cope with what you're releasing and changing. And that's a whole different ballpark. But for me, a core fundamental of everything that I believe is that we have to have our mind, our physical body, and our spirit soul self working together in harmony, in wholeness, with practical, realistic strategies that navigate this human existence and ground it into our reality. That's where it becomes real. So it's taking the big concepts, it's taking the soul self, it's taking the nervous system and working with all of them in a really practical, grounded way. That's the fundamental of everything that I do in my work and in my own life. I don't share with you anything that I haven't experienced myself first. All the things I've trained in and I now offer to my clients are there because I've experienced them myself first. So my training as a therapeutic coach, which means I understand the psychology of how we work as children, is because I went through therapeutic coaching when I was having my 5-month burnout, 5 months off work, and I needed something different to get to the root causes of what was going on. Having experienced it, I then went and trained in it, qualified in it, actually taught it as well for a while. And now I bring that into my work. And then the same with the Akashic Records, for example, with the EFT that I use, the tapping that I use, with all of the nervous system work and the strategy work that I do, because it's got to be real. My experiences have driven the ways that I have then gone on and trained in, which then mean I bring that level of experience to my work. This isn't just theoretical knowledge and training because it looked interesting. I've done a couple of those and I've never clicked with them. Never clicked. I've trained in a couple of things, only in a very small way. And I've gone, yeah, and I don't use them in my business because I haven't gone through the experience as a client of it first and experienced the revelation and transformation of it first. That's a fundamental way that I work. It's really important to me. And I see the link between what's happened in previous lifetimes into what happens in this lifetime in our childhood experiences. Some would say trauma, small t trauma, can be big T, and trauma is a big thing as well, but that I also work with, because I don't believe in re-traumatizing people when we clear things, but that's a different conversation for another day. I fundamentally see the patterns because I work across multiple lifetimes and multiple dimensions and with the psychology of the here and now. I see the patterns, the repeating patterns in trauma that happened in previous lifetimes that's then carried through into this lifetime and generations. There's a reason your soul chose this family to be born into. Whether you're still connected with your birth family or not, there's a reason you chose that experience. And it's for you now to bring your awareness to it so that you can heal it and release it and clear it out, not just for yourself, but on behalf of everyone. Because when you clear something, you're actually clearing on behalf of the collective. It's powerful stuff. It's really powerful stuff. So when I've healed some of my trauma from my childhood, small t trauma, I had a very happy childhood, but we all carry trauma and challenges from childhood. When I've cleared those, that's impacted my immediate family members, including like my mum when she was still here, and my sister and other relatives. They're impacted by my clearing and healing, and therefore that ripples out. The way I show up in the world impacts people differently because my frequency is different, because I've done the healing that I've done in my own personal life, which means I then ripple that experience and that healing out to everyone. I'm doing it right now. I'm sharing my stories with you so that you can take the impact of this and feel it yourself. So how do you avoid burnout? How do you break free from all these narratives? Well, the simple answer is, and I said right at the beginning, this is both simple and complex, and it's true. The simple answer is connect with your soul truth and live with it. Live by it. Trust it. That's how you avoid burnout. If you are using a narrative that is driven by your head, which is driven by societal conditioning and your childhood experiences and threads from past lifetimes, if you're living by rules and you're saying, I should do this because it's what I ought to be doing, which might be, I need to work more hours because otherwise I can't bring in the money. And if I can't bring in the money, then I can't have the choices I want, and therefore I won't be happy and I won't be successful. If that's your narrative, I say stop. Take a moment. Take yourself somewhere quiet. Connect in with your soul self. What do you really want? I mean, really want. There's an exercise that I want to invite you to do. You're welcome to do it or ignore it, but I found this really powerfully helpful. Write a list of everything that is important to you. Everything that's important. I mean, really important on a soul level from your heart. What's actually important to you? Write it for yourself. This is not for anyone to see. Okay, this is personal to you. Write it down. And I do say write because there's something about the process of using pen and paper, if you can, because you can then see it visually, but there's also the process of the way the brain connects with it and how you capture it by physically writing it. It makes you slow down, makes you connect in a world that's very, very, very fast and moving faster and faster, especially with AI. And by the way, I do not use AI, and I'd done it. Last week's episode was actually about, episode 2 was actually about why I don't use AI, and it's okay if you do, but you may want to consider some of the reasons why. But when we are in such a fast world, that physically writing with, I always have pen and paper with me all the time. I like analog, and it helps our brain slow down and connect with what's real. It helps you go into your heart, out of here and the speed of everything. So write yourself a list of everything that's important to you, and then put it to one side. Get yourself another piece of paper, blank sheet of paper. Write a list of all the things you spend your time doing. How do you fill your time? I don't mean a timetable, just what other things. List them out. And you can group them into categories. When you've finished that list, all the things you spend your time on, writing emails, watching YouTube videos, for example, whatever it is that you do. Maybe if you've got kids, maybe it's taking kids to school. That's all of the things that you spend your time on in an average time frame. You know, think about maybe, I don't know, over the course of a week, what do you generally do? Sometimes I go out for dinner with my husband or whatever it is. Sometimes I do this. That's okay. Write it down. Things you actually spend your time on. Group them into categories. Work, family, you. Have a look at that list, what you spend your time on, and then take them both out and look at them next to each other and map them. Map them. How much of what's important to you are you actually spending your time on? Where are the gaps? Where are the gaps? Gaps are important. And if, like me, you do that exercise and you discover on your list of things you spend your time on, things important to you are not even on there, that's time to reflect and think about how you can. If things that are important to you that you're spending your time, that you're not spending your time on, how can you bring some of those in? What on your list of things that you're doing are not on your list of things that are important to you? How can you get rid of those? How can you drop those? Now, again, I'm not saying it's easy, but everything you do, you have a choice. Have a look at it, see what comes up. Practical example. I'll just throw this one in just to give you something. So, and this was not mine, by the way, this was a client of mine. We did this exercise and she said, I'm spending loads of time doing housework, picking up after the kids and all the rest of it. And actually doing housework and picking up after looking after the kids was definitely on there, but the housework part, absolutely not. Was not on her list of what's important. So she made a choice then and there, and she hired a cleaner. Not to do everything, but I think just came in once a week and did some of the basics. Put the hoover around and cleaned the kitchen and bathroom for her. Just enough to free up some time. But if she hadn't done that exercise, she'd have carried on trying to juggle everything. Now, you might not be in a position to do that. You might not want to do that, and that's okay. The point is not whether or not you get a cleaner. The point is what's important to you versus what are you spending your time on? Where are the gaps? And where are the things you're spending your time on that actually don't matter at all? How can you drop those? Burnout happens when you force yourself into a version of you that isn't true and authentic to you. Burnout happens when you spend all your time doing things that just don't matter to your soul and you ignore the things that do. That's when burnout happens. That's when physical illness happens, however it manifests for you. If you want to go deeper with this, if you want to dive into what's going on for you, you are very welcome. I'll put the link below to book a free expansion audit with me. And that's where we go through a series of questions and we cover all sorts of things. It's an hour, it's on Zoom, one-to-one, and it's free. You can just use my brain, it's fine. It's a series of tried and tested questions. It's really powerful and it will show you exactly what your next steps could be. It's really, really practical as well. It's designed to be practical. It's not my solutions, it's helping you work out yours. It's an audit of you. I just hold the space for you to be able to see things more objectively. And you will leave that with, it's usually about 3 things that you can take actual actions on. Sometimes it's one really big thing, but usually it's 2 or 3 things that you can do, really practical things you can go away and do straight away. So you can book one of those below. The link is in the notes with this. I'm going to leave that there. Burnout is not a nice place to be. And the reason I'm sharing this all with you is because I don't want you to get to the place that I did. 5 months off work was not nice. I want you to be in a position where you connect with yourself deeply enough to not get there. That's the point of this. So I hope this has been useful. Please do let me know, what insights has this given you? I'd love, love, love to hear from you. And feel free, if you don't want to comment below, please do feel free to reach out to me privately. You can do that. My details are all below this video. You can find the text there. I'm going to leave this here. It has been a joy being with you. I'm loving being your bridge to joy. That's part of my mission, is to help you activate the things inside you that bring you closer to a state of joy, permanent joy. That's where I'm at. And I'm here to share that with you and to show you how to get there. I would love it if you would do me one massive favor. If you haven't already, please do click the like button, and please do make sure you're subscribed to my channel so that you get notified whenever one of these is uploaded. And there are other things that I put on my channel as well. I do channeled messages as well, as and when they come in from my guides. They're not on a schedule because they are unique and random, and my guides sometimes bring them in and sometimes they don't. So I never know when they're going to be, but I put them out whenever they come through. So you'll get those and other things as well. I've got some other things in the pipeline. So I appreciate you. I am sending you loads of love. I hope this has helped you today. Let's avoid burnout. We don't want to go there. I want you to thrive and live with joy. Take care, and I'll be back with you very soon.